Hi and welcome to Office Fluent. My name is Jan, and today we have another episode of Excel from Basic to Expert, where we take a look at data validation. You might ask yourself, what is data validation and what is it used for? So let's take the example I have here open right now. We have a chocolate tasting. You have six different chocolates in front of you, and you should evaluate these chocolates once based on their taste and once on a scale from 1 to 10 on their design. So because the people who did the testing didn't want you to write just whatever you wanted, you have drop-down menus. So for option A, I can just select one of those 4 options. Let's say it's purely rounded. But option B is very good. Option C is sour. D is a little bit sourish. Option E and F are like perfect. So I don't really have any choice but to use those drop-down menus. If I delete one of those and just try to write tasteless, I'm getting an error message because this value isn't valid. Clicking on retry and I can just select one of those options again. The same is true for the second evaluation. If I hover over this, I get the hint, please enter a number between 1 and 10. If I'm going to enter a 12, I'm again getting an error message with the hint, please enter a number between 1 and 10. So I can just enter numbers between 1 and 10 and the system is fine with that. So now the question is, how did I do it? How are these options defined? Because if I click in here, you can see there is no formula or anything else. Because this is done with data validation. Data validation is used to make sure that in a field only data is entered, which follows certain criteria. So let me just clear this all out and I'll see you in a bit. And I'm back. So now you can see the drop-down is gone, the hint is gone, and everything is back to 0. So before I go any deeper into data validation, if we want to work with drop-downs, we need to provide the values that should be in there. I actually have a list with the options here a little bit to the right so you couldn't see, but those values are needed right now. So what I want to do is I want to select those 6 fields where I want the dropdown to be. And then on the data tab, we have the point data validation. And if I click on that, I do get 3 tabs: settings, input message, and error alert. So for the settings, I can define which data can go in. At the moment, it's set to allow any value. Just type whatever you want. But I want to change this, and I wanted to change it to a list. I can also select whole numbers, decimals, dates, time, text length, or custom. But for list, it asks me the source. And if I click in here and scroll over to my options, I can select those 4. I can ignore blank fields. So if I selected those 6 and have ignore blank, they would just be ignored. If I remove this, I would have the option to select a blank value in the drop-down menu. And in cell drop-down just allows me to have this drop-down menu. If I didn't click this, it would just take these exact values, but it wouldn't give an option to use a drop-down menu. So I'm clicking on done, and you can see that the drop-down menus are back and I can select whatever I want. For the other option here, I had a scale from 1 to 10. So again, in the data tab, I have data validation. And here I could select decimal numbers if I want to allow decimal points. But in my case, I'm going with whole numbers. And I have in between minimum 1, maximum 10. So ignore blank in this case means it's okay if I leave fields blank. It will not give me an error if I don't input a number. In the tab input message, I can show a message. For example, numbers between 1 and 10. This is the message which will be shown if I click on a field without entering anything. And the error alert, I do have 3 options here. I can show an alert or don't. I can block the entry of a false data, or I can only put a warning. So let's go with a warning. Non-valid number. Please enter a number between 1 and 10. And I click on OK. And you can see I have my hint again. And I can input my numbers between 1 and 10. And now, as this is not a block, but a warn, if I input something bigger or smaller than 10, I am being asked, do I want to continue with a non-valid number or don't I want to? And I say, yes, I want to. And Excel says, okay, I'll leave it be, but you should be aware that this number is not valid. So last but not least, let me just go here. Let's take a look at data validation and custom. Here I can enter a formula. So this way I can define with all the options I have in formulas which data are allowed or not allowed. This way you could work with variables based on data you inputted from somewhere else, instead of working with static numbers or values like we did before. I really hope you enjoyed this. I really hope you find some ways to integrate drop-down menus or data validation at all in your documents. It's really useful if you send documents to somebody else and want to make sure that only the data are inputted that you want to have. So be aware that this option exists and make use of it. And yeah, that's all I have for today. Have a nice day. Have a nice week. We'll see each other next week. And until then, subscribe and hit the like button. It helps the algorithm. It helps me. And see you then. Bye.